Hello, and welcome to another countdown. With the year of 2017 coming and going, I felt that it would be fun to do the trope I haven't done in 3 years and talk about my favorite games I played in 2017. But I was soon confronted with the fact that for the first 7 months of 2017, I wasn't able to play video games. And to add to that, after buying a Switch, I found myself pretty much penniless, with nothing new to play but the bare essentials, and maybe something on my Steam backlog that's remotely interesting. So I'm going to cut the typical top 10 down, and instead go with a more digestible top 5. The only rule, I guess, is one per franchise. So yeah, let's get into it. Danganronpa seemed like a closed case to me. After the end of Host Peak High anime, it seemed to be done. But nope. I was thinking about an insect analogy in order to describe Danganronpa, and I originally thought of the cockroach because it never seems to go away. But there are too many games that fit that mold better. Danganronpa is like a bee. It seems to always come back, and if you fight it, it'll just go out with a bang. Danganronpa V3 is definitely a game that I was looking forward to. It had that cool, futuristic aesthetic and some intriguing new characters, like Rantaro, whose mere physical presence answers all the abstract questions philosophers have been contemplating about beauty and what it is. I got the game, and the game definitely made some big decisions and challenged a lot of the tropes Danganronpa was kinda used to. And some of them were good, some of them, not so much. But the cast was good, the music was good, and the cases were really good. It was really fun to play, and it was definitely capable of grasping my shitty attention span. But then came the ending. I won't go into detail for the sake of spoilers, but the ending left me feeling unsatisfied and generally pissed. It was a good game in the bigger picture, but for fans of the series, it kind of cut off its nose despite its face. With the ending we got, it's unlikely that we'll ever even have another Danganronpa game, and because of its separated story from the rest of the Danganronpa canon, it just kind of sits there all alone in an absurdist nightmare. But even if I disliked the ending, it was still a good game for the first 5 chapters. The new lying mechanic was really well implemented, the game's theme stepped away from hope and despair and decided to go with the conflicts of truth, and the revamped minigames might just be the best in the entire game. The characters I need to say are really good, possibly the best in the entire series. It was, a really fun game. And even with my rocky relationship with the game, I can't help but concede to the game being, pretty swell. And even if the ending twists kind of ruined the story for a lot of fans, including me, the twists were in no way poorly implemented, and the story foreshadowed its twists really, really well. So I feel like I kind of owe this game some appreciation after tearing it apart a few weeks ago. With the absolute disaster the Fire Emblem franchise's fanbase has turned into, I wasn't expecting to enjoy Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia as much as I did. You can push my buttons to get me to complain about Fire Emblem Awakening and Fates for hours, but with Echoes it makes so many big decisions that fix a lot of the problems Fire Emblem had been getting itself into. Now I should make it clear that Fire Emblem Echoes is a remake of Fire Emblem Gaiden, the Japan-exclusive Fire Emblem game that came out back in 1992 that took a few different steps from what would become the Fire Emblem norm. But to its credit, it does things really well. Intelligent Systems took this game by the ear and fixed it up with a new coat of paint, and pretty much took the strengths of the old and new Fire Emblem games and put it together into an excellent strategy game. Fire Emblem Gaiden is quite outdated, but its really good story was taken and improved to become even better than before. The redesigns of the characters gives us the best of both worlds, giving us the more complex and interesting older Fire Emblem personalities, and combining them with the visually stimulating expressions and wardrobes of the newer Fire Emblem characters. Maybe it's just because the game actively makes you use all the units you're given, but I felt more connected with them. I didn't have to worry about which units were more worth using and falling behind, because the game let me use all of them at once. Something worth mentioning is that the game's maps were mostly unchanged, and I can't say I'm too big a fan of that. The maps are often too big and really empty, and it's a good thing they took away a lot of the newer mechanics because the more complex mechanics of the newer games do not walk hand in hand with this game's map design. Like, the weapon triangle isn't even in this game. It really does have a nice retro charm. Fortunately, I guess you can use the auto battle system to move long distances in less time. An intriguing change was the addition of Mila's turn wheel. I originally thought it was a casual mode only thing, but nope. It's basically a way to fix the dumbass decisions you might make playing this game, and I do really appreciate that. I can see its controversy with the fact that it lets you be a lot more reckless, but I think it still lets classic players create a good strategy without deaths. It's like letting you delete a typo when writing a paper instead of having to write it all over again. So I used it. The game could be harder. With the dungeon and town system, it's constantly giving you more money and tools, and there are sources of infinite experience, so even on hard classic it was pretty easy. I went the entire run without a single death, at least until the final chapter where like 10 people died, and I decided to let it go because of the final chapter. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a good game. It won Game of the Year. Not my personal favorite game of the year, but you know, it's good. The Zelda series and I are like in-laws. We're connected through other parties and we feel like we should get to know each other, but we just don't click. I tried Ocarina of Time like 12 times, Skyward Sword, A Link Between Worlds, the original, and more, but the only Zelda game I've ever finished is The Wind Waker. I wish that could be a good segue to Breath of the Wild, but I still haven't finished it. But yeah, Breath of the Wild, from the 30 to 40 hours I have on it so far, is, pretty good. Serving as the premier Switch exclusive, except for the fact that it was also released on the Wii U, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a big game to say the least. Serving as the true open-world Zelda game, the big question I was asking was, is this even a good open-world game? My relationship with open-world games has been depressing and miserable, so would Zelda help amend those fences or make it even worse? It made it better. Nintendo would not shut up about this game, and it got pretty annoying. But turns out they had something worth bragging about. Breath of the Wild takes the open world setup and shows all the other kids how it's done. And for that, it has the biggest, most passionate respect from me. It has held my attention for much longer than any other Zelda game has, but there still seems to be a barrier between us that's still there. Not saying I don't enjoy the game, but I don't think I'll ever love it as much as the critics do. Breath of the Wild makes a surprisingly large amount of changes from the set Zelda format. It decides to dilute the complexity of fighting a bit in order to add more options. Although you can't do as much with your typical sword and shield, you're now given the ability to fight with plenty of different weapons. And that's awesome. The diversity and detail is something that is really well done. It feels like anything you can think of is possible in this game. They really did think of everything. The game provides complexity, but it doesn't overwhelm you with all the variables that might get in your way. Sure, things like temperature and stamina are things to consider when making decisions, but its visual cues and easy to understand information makes it alright. There's no real busy work in this game, even with its many quests. None of them are poorly introduced to you, and they all provide you with a decent amount of information. There are no kill X enemies quests. They all have a story linked to them, and I like that. Overall, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was an excellent step into a new kind of game for the Zelda series, and it really did earn the praise it gets. The Pokemon series' yearly releases have definitely been fun. I didn't get the chance to play Pokemon Moon until this year though, and it was good. Unfortunately, right when I beat it, Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon was announced. We weren't quite sure what this game was going to be. They said it was an alternate story in a way that hadn't really been done before, and we took that in the worst way possible. People seemed to originally think it took place in an alternate timeline that was a lot more psycho-cool than the original, where the evil teams were good guys and Lily is kind of a bad bitch. I wasn't too stoked on that. I was hoping that the game would be a sequel. But in the end, we were all wrong. It was an alternate story for sure, but in the worst way possible. Pokemon had been trying to explain away their canon in recent years, and it's been a shit show. They tried to bring up alternate universes in other worlds in Ultra Space, and it's been a dumpster fire of cop-outs. I thought having a loose canon that wasn't very well explained could have been fine, but apparently Pokemon is trying to logically explain why Archie switched races between Pokemon's third generation in the remix, but is white again when the episode RR's Ultra Sun and Moon takes place. But fortunately, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon attempt to take a step back and just be an expanded edition, similar to Platinum or Emerald, which is kind of a shame. Maybe I'm spoiled, but after the excellent add-ons like Black and White 2, my expectations for the add-on of Sun and Moon were higher than what we received. But beyond the rehashed story, there were a few good changes. It's the first add-on Pokemon game to include new Pokemon, which is great. The game has new Pokemon forms, which is nice, even though none of the new forms are new Alolan forms. It was a fun addition, but I'm having a lot of trouble getting the motivation to challenge the battle tree again, catch the entire Pokedex again, So I think the real champ here is Pokemon Sun and Moon. It's the entire game, but with a bit less. The story has a bit less to it, and it's a bit harder to enjoy after experiencing the upgrade, but I had much more fun with my first playthrough than my second. So I guess the real number 2 is this one. The game was definitely fun, and it came at the right time, getting me obsessed with Pokemon again. It's the first time I've ever completed the regional Pokedex in a Pokemon game, and that surprises me. I think the game owes a lot of its quality to the previous Pokemon games, but it's good regardless. It's just hard to go back to previous generations because this game takes out HMs and replaces them with ride Pokemon you can call at any time to perform basic actions. It doesn't have the same team-based immersion that HMs had, but it's still better in every way. The game encourages you to use your Pokemon without worrying about the obligation to put shitty moves on your team to travel through the region properly, and that's what makes Generation 7 my definitive Pokemon experience. Not the improved story, the awesome roster, or the cool additions to the metagame. Just the fact that I don't have to worry about an HM slave when I'm training or breeding. It took us 20 years, but we finally made it, friends. With these lists, the game people play is, what do Zelda and Mario get? Personally, I prefer Odyssey. Zelda's great, but as I said, it's not really my thing. Super Mario Odyssey may not match Zelda in size, but it's so much denser that I worry it will collapse into a black hole of good game design. What Super Mario Odyssey claims to do is go back to Mario's exploration-based 3D roots. We haven't had an exploration-based Mario platformer since 2002, and like a girlfriend who's been expecting him to pop the question for months, I was pretty impatient for Mario's return. And like the man that girl deserves, Nintendo came at us and did not disappoint. You might consider the last few years almost a dark age of Mario. Years and years of the same shit being released over and over again, and fans were understandably worried that from then on we would be cursed with just 7 out of 10 Mario games for eternity. This time around, Mario is off to save a kidnapped Peach, which has been done, but from the start it's an action-packed fight scene. Bowser's wearing a dapper tuxedo and suit. Mario is taking the shit seriously. And then when Mario is kicked off, you see his hat be torn to shreds. This game is confident that it's different, and it lets you know that from the start. Within the first 20 minutes, you've saved London, become a T-Rex, and beaten the shit out of some Koopaling persona. When I played this game, it felt like I had played it before. There was this sense of childlike familiarity that I've just felt with like 3 games ever. Needless to say, this game lives up to its name. It doesn't just give its predecessors a run for their money, I think it surpasses them. With a bigger environment, more stuff to do, more ways to do that stuff, and just an identity all its own, I'd say Super Mario Odyssey is my new favorite Mario game. More so than just the platformers, but I dare say that I like it more than Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. It's really that good. This game doesn't feel like it exists. It meets a level of quality and polish that just reminds people what games can do. With today's constant politicization of gaming issues, we've kind of forgotten what the main purpose of games is to do. Super Mario Odyssey isn't trying to make you reconsider your preconceptions about life. It goes beyond all the platitudes and just aims to be fucking fun. God, it's just so good.
Spin the wheel, take a chance. Every journey starts anew.